The Daughters of Juana of Castile, Part 2. Juana and Philip's third daughter was named Mary. She was born on the 15th of September 1505. Mary was born in Brussels between 10 and 11 in the morning. Archduchess Mary was the fifth child out of the six of them. The birth of her fifth child was quite difficult. It put her mother's life in danger. It took her almost a month to recover. She was named after her grandmother, who was Mary, Duchess of Burgundy, who was also known as Mary the Rich because she inherited lots of land from her father. On the 17th of March 1506, the Emperor Maximilian wanted to marry her off to the first son of King Vladislas II of Hungary. Around the same time of Mary's marriage, they wanted one of her brothers, Charles or Ferdinand, to marry Vladislas' daughter Anne. Months after this news, Vladislas' wife Anne had a son called Louis. The Queen died shortly after, and people tried to have a good effort to keep the young child alive. After the death of Mary's father Philip, who died unexpectedly, Juana became more depressed, and she missed him a lot. Because of this, Mary and her siblings were put into the paternal care of their aunt Archduchess Margaret, while her two other siblings, Ferdinand and Catherine, remained in Castile. Maximilian, who was the Holy Roman Emperor at the time, summoned his granddaughter Mary to his court. On the 22nd of July 1515, Mary and Louis were married in St. Stephen's Cathedral, Vienna, at the same time. Louis' sister Anne was betrothed to, as yet uncertified, Mary's brother. In 1521, Mary travelled to Hungary after 2.5 years after the death of her grandfather Maximilian. She was crowned Queen of Hungary by Simon Edory, Bishop of Zagreb in Szekgyevár on the 11th of December 1521. The royal marriage was blessed on the 13th of January 1522 in Buda. Mary's appointment and coronation as Queen of Bohemia took a deep place on the 1st of June 1522. The couple fell in love when they were reunited. At first, Queen Mary had no influence over politics of Hungary and Bohemia because her court was repelled with Germans and Dutch, who formed a base for interests of the House of Habsburg. At some point, there was an Ottoman invasion and Hungary was divided into three. The day after Mary's husband's death, Ferdinand was notified of the defeat and asked him to come to Hungary. She requested troops to support her until his arrival. Ferdinand was busy in Bohemia, where he already been elected king instead of Mary, his regent in Hungary. Mary soon, sadly and unfortunately, had troubles with finances and illnesses and loneliness. In 1528, her aunt Margaret suggested that she should marry James V of Scotland. Mary rejected the idea because she had loved her husband and did not wish for another marriage. In 1530, her brother Charles suggested that she should remarry. He proposed to arrange a marriage with Frederick of Bavaria, who was unsuccessfully courted. Mary's sister Eleanor, 16 years before Mary, rejected him as well. Ferdinand offered his sister post-regent again in 1528, but she declined, saying that such affairs need a person wiser and older. Ferdinand tried to draw Mary into the affairs throughout 1529. Archduchess Margaret died on the 1st of December next year, leaving the position of governor of the 17 provinces in the Netherlands vacant. Ferdinand informed her about her aunt's death, saying that her affairs might now take a different course. Her brother Charles requested that she assume the regency of the Netherlands. Charles was ruling a vast empire and was constantly in the rebel family members who could govern the remote territories in his name. Mary reluctantly accepted on Charles's behalf. On the 6th of October 1537, in Modzon, the emperor wrote to her, "I am only one and I can't be everywhere, and I must be where I ought to be, and where I can, and often though only where I can be, and not where I would like to be, for one can't do more than one can do." When Mary ruled as governor for the Netherlands, she was quite unhappy, as she never enjoyed the role. In May 1531, having governed for only 4 months, Mary told her brother Ferdinand the experience was like having a rope around her neck. While Margaret had been considered truly feminine, flexible and affable, humorous and charming, Mary was unlikely and unforeign. Margaret accomplished her goals using a smile, a joke, a word of praise. Mary used cynical and biting comments. Because of being the governor of the Netherlands, she was granted guardianship of her nieces Dorothea and Christina of Denmark, the daughters of her older sister Queen Isabella of Denmark, who had died in 1526. Upon Isabella's death, the princess had been cared for by Archduchess Margaret. Charles now relied upon Mary to arrange marriages for them, especially Dorothy, whom he wanted to place in the Danish throne. Soon enough, both of her nieces were married. King Henry VIII even proposed to Christina, and Charles urged Mary to negate the marriage. She was not in favour of the union and delayed it. Mary left positions to Charles. Since Charles had died, Philip inherited his aunt's property shortly before her death. She decided that Philip and Juana should execute her will. She requested that her heart-shaped gold medallion once worn by her husband be melted down and the gold distributed to the poor. Mary was buried in St. Benedict in Vladislav. Juana's youngest daughter was named Catherine. She was born while her mother was put on house arrest for technically the rest of her life. Catherine was born the 14th of January 1507. She was named after her aunt Catherine of Aragon. Her mother at the time was mentally unstable, and when she was in labour she refused to have midwives help her. Juana kept Catherine with her by her side for the next 18 years. In her mother's imprisonment at Tordesillas during her grandfather Ferdinand of Aragon's time as reigned, and her older brother Charles as co-king when at the time came to marry, Catherine was released from custody, the custody that her mother endured until her death. Charles technically stole her away, but she was married off to John III of Portugal. The couple had 9 children, but sadly only 2 survived childhood. Since Catherine was worried about the education of her family, she brought a number of women scholars into her household, including the humanists Joan of Vaz and Publia Horta de Castro and the poet Luisa Siga de Velasco. After the death of her husband in 1557, she was challenged by her daughter-in-law and niece Joan of Austria over the role of regent. Her grandchild, the King Sebastian Medici, by Charles V, resolved the issue in favour of his sister Catherine over Joan, who was needed in Spain, absence of Philip II. Catherine lived all the way to the age of 71, dying on the 12th of February 1574.